on sports.
All right, gentlemen. You know, as we get ready for the 100th NFL season is the name Meek Mill, Fletch? Meek.
Meek, yes.
Meek Mill. Okay. He's singing.
He shall inherit the earth, apparently.
I'm sorry?
He shall inherit the earth, I hear. I don't know.
Is he the Philly guy?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Is he on tonight's?
He's on tonight's show. He's bringing us into the 100th NFL season, which is appropriate. I'd hope Bob Dylan would have done it with illegible words and music that was different than he had played earlier in his career, as he loves to do in his concert, which makes the people who paid lots of money in the concert take bets on what song he's playing at that point in time. Very troubling. But,
well,
tonight I'm here with.
He doesn't have a rap sheet the size of your arm. He just smoked a lot of marijuana, so I guess take your pick, right?
We don't know. We don't know if he does. But this is Gary Nitro Kin tonight. Chris Curly Spice Fletcher. Curly Spice. There you go. There you go. And I'm Dave the Weasel Finoli.
No argument.
Oh,
how are you guys tonight?
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous. As bad as the Pitt game was on Saturday, I had at the Wild Coyote, I forget what the name, I think it was the Wild Coyote, a great combination of pulled pork and ribs at the God, I guess this will be my 10th consecutive rib fest before a Pitt game. So very tasty. I mean, it makes the evening a little more palatable, even though the team didn't.
Is Rib Fest down by the park, or is that the thing in South Park?
No, it's right in front of the stadium.
Right in front of the stadium. Okay.
After watching that Pitt game, Dave, I don't know how you held those ribs down.
Oh, nasty. Although, not that Pickett didn't play poorly, because he did, but that was the worst performance by receivers I think I've ever seen. They dropped 3 easy, what would have been significant gains, and there were very many occasions where Pickett was being blamed for overthrows on some long throws. But in my mind, for some reason, the receivers would stop and try to jump for the ball rather than to run through, where they would have had a better chance to catch the ball. And they were wide open. It was a very I thought the schemes were good. I'm a fan of Whipple's offense, but Matt LaFleur is making his head coaching debut tonight, by the way.
Green Bay.
Green
Bay. Yeah.
I think it's a problem with Pitt is, they have bad players or average players. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about something we grew up with, Pitt being a national power. We saw one of the greatest turnarounds in college football history, from a 1-10 team to 4 years later winning a national championship. Miraculous comeback. We saw Jackie Sherrill lead the team for years, probably better teams than what the 76 national championship team was. And then we see Ed Bozick lead a charge to improve the grades of the academics of the athletes, and expect fully that he's going to continue the winning ways. And you can mention to me Northwestern, you can mention to me Stanford, but in both cases they're low-end top 20 teams, and they have no chance to make the playoffs. So as well as it should be, you can't mix academics and athletics, as Pitt tries to do, and win national championships. We think that sometimes it's the money you spend is equivalent of how good a team you are. So I pulled up the money that ACC teams pay for football. Where do you think Pitt lies in this group of 14 ACC teams?
I'm going to say they're dead.
They're dead last?
Dead in the middle.
In the middle? Gare?
I was going to say the same, Dave. I was going to say like between like maybe 9 and 12, something like that.
I was expecting the same. But in reality, they're in the top third. They're number 5, right behind Virginia Tech, Clemson and Florida State. Florida State is like 3 times the amount. So you talk about getting your money's worth, you're not getting it there. They pay $60 million a year for their team. Clemson's at 46, Miami 37, Virginia 27.9, and Pitt at 27.2. So you can't look there and say they're not spending, but you have several factors that Mark Madden brought up in his column today. So I'm going to take them point by point, give you my thoughts. We'll go to you guys. But bottom line, the question is, will Pitt ever be anything more than an average program going forward? This is the longest stretch. Pitt has been known for excellence in the program, followed by horrendous play or mediocrity. Walter Byers, the NCAA guru for many years in the 60s and 50s and early 70s, once said he's never seen a program more embarrassed of winning than Pitt, because it seemed like every time they won, they did something so incredibly stupid to the losers. So Madden points out a few things in his column today. He claims that Pitt committed football suicide when it built the Peterson Event Center on the site of Pitt Stadium. The foolishness of the move will forever ripple in negativity, he says. He also says that in college athletics, basketball isn't a pimple on the backside of football, which I agree. Disagree on Pitt Stadium. Pitt Stadium is an uncomfortable venue where nobody came to watch the game because they weren't winning. The students didn't come up. I had season tickets there, and quite frankly, yeah, maybe there was more than 10,000 people in that stadium, but wasn't much more than that. I think Heinz Field is a very nice facility. The problem is when Pitt doesn't win, it doesn't matter where they play. People aren't going to come. Pitt and Penn State and West Virginia need to play every year. Not going to happen. With the way college sports is at this point, it'd be great if they did. It'd be suicide if they did too, because bottom line, you need to find a way to get 7 or 8 wins to get into a bowl game, and the formula is usually you got to play 2 or 3 teams in your non-conference that you can beat. But that's not going to happen. It's easy to blame that, but whether they're in Pitt Stadium, whether they're in Heinz Field, it's not going to happen. So it's not even something worth talking about. Said that Pitt fans haven't bought into the ACC. I agree with that. I feel like an outsider there. I root for Boston College and Syracuse against other teams because of the Big East connection, but I really have no connection to the other things. But again, what were they going to do? Were they going to stick themselves in something that would have been the American Athletic Conference? There was no other choice but to go to the ACC. They're the only ones that wanted Pitt. Had Pitt stayed in the Big East like UConn did, or was going to, they would have been an independent program, and that would have been instantaneous death to the program. So again, nothing they could have done. He points out that we don't get the WPIAL players. It's true. I'm not sure that's a killer as much now. They used to be in the top 1 or 2. Now they're, I think, 5th or 6th was their rating. So, not as it's still good football area, but not as good as it was. But that is a valid point. I mean, right now we don't do well in our backyard. But again, when you're going to see 108,000 people rooting for a team versus 10,000, it's going to be tough to convince a kid to stay in that college atmosphere, especially in a world now where every Division I prospect thinks they're going to the NFL. Many won't. His last thing is Narduzzi is a bad coach. I'm not sure he's a bad coach, but what I think Narduzzi hasn't done, and what you need for Pitt to be relevant, is a coach like Johnny Majors. Not a guy who's an X's and O's guy. I'm not sure Johnny Majors was one of the top X's and O's guys in the history of the game, but what Johnny Majors was a salesman. And I'm not sure Pat Narduzzi is that. You need a guy to come in here and sell the local kids first, and then sell some of these kids on what can be. Because bottom line, in a big city, now this is my thought, as you go on in today's age where social media is so important and every game's on TV, it becomes more difficult to sell a big city program. Penn State sells out because they've got nothing. You want to go to a cow chip throwing championship? That's your option. That's what they're up against.
It's true.
It'd be nice if the Steelers had a bad season for Pitt, and Pitt ended up winning 9 games, because that's where you need to take away some fans. But bottom line, you need a guy to either will do one of two things: either come in and sell the program, or like Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech, have a offensive scheme that's just tough to coach against. That you can come in here and you can win with lesser players because you have a scheme that can beat them. I'm not sure Pat Narduzzi is that. I get a little frustrated when people say a coach sucks. These guys are great coaches, but he's in a tough situation. And right now, until you find that guy, I don't see an end to the mediocrity. He actually, when you look at him, since Jackie Sherrill, he's probably the most consistent winning coach that Pitt had. And you know, it's Heather Lyke's doing a lot of good things. I really genuinely don't think an on-campus stadium is going to do anything, because to fit one there, you're going to have a 35,000 seat stadium. And to me, that's telling a recruit, I don't care if you fill it or not, it's telling a recruit this is not an impressive program. So Fletch, I don't think it can, I'm not sure it can be done in our lifetime unless they find a salesman. Bottom line.
Well, if I'm a salesperson, here's what I'm selling. Our graduates have done very well in the NFL, and that's basically what I'm selling to them. You're going to be working at a facility that's an NFL ready, and it's shared by an NFL team. I would look at people like, it's not only going to be the coaching staff doing the selling, it's going to be Aaron Donald doing the selling. It's going to be Darrelle Revis doing the selling. It's going to be all those guys people know, and get them involved more with the program. I mean, one thing you will say is that Aaron, he has gotten back with the program, and he's been there. But I mean, you're talking about the best player in the NFL graduated from your program. You need to use that.
Yeah.
Dave, I go back and forth about the on-campus stadium. I think that they probably made a mistake in building the PITT instead of building a new football stadium there. Just in terms of revenue, I think it was probably might have been a better choice. But, Pitt's not been – even when they had decent coaches, and say what you want about Walt Harris and say what you want about Dave Wannstedt, but they won. They were able to get pro-caliber athletes to come to Pitt. So I'm not sure how you fix this, really. I mean, the ACC – Can you talk about a rival with Pitt yet? I don't see one. I know maybe it's early yet, but who's the rival? You need a rival, and it's just not there yet. Pitt's still going to be wrestling with that academic thing, and the move to ACC even makes it more apparent. I mean, that is a great league in terms of academics, both with basketball and with football. I mean, the access that they get for a lot of research by being part of the ACC is tremendous.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you're really getting a lot of the top-notch athletes to come here. And, you mentioned the WPAL not really producing as many players. That's true. But it used to be that Pitt had a fence around that no one was getting in and no one was taking any of those players. And that's not the case anymore. And it's part of it is because of how widespread the games are everywhere else. I mean, people it's not like it was when we had a few cable channels and just the networks.
Right.
Now kids are exposed to all the different programs. So I'm not sure what the answer is. The one thing I will say about Heather Light, she's done a hell of a job with the secondary sports and made Pitt really competitive in those areas. I don't know what you do with football. I mean, Gary, what do you think?
Well, I would agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, I think it's interesting. She made a big splash when she brought Capel up there for basketball.
Yeah.
This was a guy that was highly regarded in the basketball world, particularly college basketball world, first as a player, then as somebody who even Krzyzewski, despite all his arrogance, listened to. She made that splash. I don't sit out there like you guys do, so I'm not reading the press. I don't get to see them even that much. I'm watching it more since we've been doing this stuff together, but I kind of do think it goes back to a sales part, and I think you got to use a lot of history here. I mean, beyond Donald, who is the best defensive player in the NFL, he also had the best receiver in the NFL for a while, Fitzgerald, who does speak positively about Pittsburgh and Pitt.
Although now he's doing commercials for getting his degree at the University of Phoenix. That's got to sting a little bit.
Yeah, but my point is, as a football player, though, he did sell Pittsburgh, Pitt, the whole area.
And
I think he got to sell some of the history.
Back several times, too. I'll give him that. He does.
Yeah,
he does come back.
Let me ask you guys this, though. Do you think it needs to be a Pitt guy that comes in and does this?
Well, you look at Longstaff and Pitt. He was a Pitt guy that came back and did it. He unfortunately got caught in the crossfires of a Sports Illustrated article that embarrassed the chancellor, who wasn't a sports fan, in Nordenberg, who did a wonderful job there raising the academics, but he wasn't a sports fan. But Longstaff did the job. Longstaff was selling the program, and probably a little short-sighted to fire him. I agree with you. He was a defensive guy to me, first and foremost. But he had some success in the NFL, despite whatever you think of him. And when he came back to Pitt, he was putting it back on the map. So, I think the part that I hope people in Pittsburgh aren't going to be offended by this. Pitt is not Harvard. Okay? I'm sorry. It's not even Stanford. So why do we have to have this attitude? Now, I'm going to separate the line here. In the football program, I don't think we have to have this huge academic standard. Let's cut the charade again. We're bitter men on sports, call me bitter. But this major college sports, they're not students. Okay? I'm sorry. Right. Pittsburgh's no different than if you're in Tallahassee or Oklahoma City. It doesn't matter. One. Two, there's a difference between committing a crime like we've seen at Michigan State and everything else and worrying about whether these kids are really students or not. I'm sorry. If you want to compete at a high level, you're going to have to change that mentality. And I don't understand. Duquesne, Pitt, Carnegie Mellon accepted. This isn't Harvard or Stanford even. Okay, what are we so worried about that for? You've got to be kidding me. I'm not so sure they're worried about it at this point. It's just there was a time they were worried about it. I had talked to somebody who was an admin in the athletic office when Paul Hackett took over, and she said the striking thing was when Gottfried was recruiting, you knew they were top athletes. When Hackett was recruiting, they were about half the size because he wasn't necessarily recruiting athletes. But now I'm not so sure it matters, but you're so far behind the eight ball right now. I think you're having trouble selling. I don't think they don't want to be. Pitt doesn't want to be Alabama, and I don't blame them for that.
I understand that.
Alabama's and I'm very much again. I'd love to win, but I'm very much against what an Alabama does and the kind of quality of some of the players and people that they bring on campus, which isn't necessarily something I want to see at a campus. But on the other end, I agree with the fact that you can't hold them to a standard, and that was one of Pitt's problems in the past. They were holding them to standards sometimes above what they were a normal student trying to. Bozick was very much guilty of that in his tenure.
Well, I guess my train of thinking here, though, is I agree. I mean, I think the Michigan State offensiveness and some of the stuff that we've seen, the Penn State stuff, I'm not suggesting that you go to that level.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, in a city that is, quite frankly, a much smaller city, and as Chris and you both said, with all of the available media today, you can see everything, find everything from Florida Atlantic to Washington State in 5 minutes. You almost have to adjust your thinking a little bit. You cannot sit on some kind of higher than thou laurel. If you want this program to return, there's a lot of things that have to be done. Clearly, we need a salesperson, somebody that sells Pittsburgh. Hell, I'd go all the way back to Ditka. I'd have an ad with Ditka all the way to Larry Donald on the same ad.
Yeah.
I would have that when I'm going out to see some of these recruits. And there's really, I mean, I don't love Madden. I don't want to give him too much press, but I kind of read the article too. I kind of agree the fact that that fence they used to have from Central Ohio to Central Pennsylvania up to Erie and down to West Virginia and Penn State are kicking their ass.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, there's no excuse for that. And that comes back to the administration, the coaching staff, and everything else. I mean, I don't think it's hopeless. I have not been to the games like you guys have been. I haven't been to the old Pitt Stadium very much, other than we were together years ago. I haven't been to Heinz Field. I wonder, only you guys could tell me what the environment is. Villanova, for years, when they could make a lot of money, would take their Big East games down to the Wells Fargo Center. And even the diehard Villanova people, now the building they built, much like Duquesne, was too small initially for basketball. So they couldn't play Syracuse and Georgetown there. They could make a lot more money at Wells Fargo. But it was a bad environment. It was a very bad environment. So not being educated enough about what both environments are like, I have a hard time speaking on that. I don't know if campus is the answer, but if you're going to have it in a big pro stadium, you got to be good, and you got to have a good environment. And if you only got 2/3 of it full, which seems to be the tone of a lot of this and some of the press that's out there, not just this year but last, that's a tough sell for the average person who just wants to go out on a good fall day, have a couple tailgates, and maybe watch football.
Well, here's the thing. If you start to win, in 2009 when they were winning 9 and 10 games in back-to-back years, and they were playing the Cincinnati game, the one where they blew the big lead, which would have put them in a major bowl had they held on. That place was about 80-85% full. It was a great atmosphere. The games were enjoyable. Now, it's never going to be, even in the heyday, it was never what Penn State has now. It's not what Notre Dame has.
No.
I'm not sure you get that in a big city. But in 2009, winning was getting people there, was getting people excited. It was a good atmosphere. Bad is bad, but sometimes I think mediocrity is worse because it gives you hope and it spawns big disappointment in the end when you're 7-6.
Yep.
To me, that's what I don't know that the venue is because you're right, Fletch. It's a great selling point. I don't know if Narduzzi's the right guy to sell it. I mean, Jackie Sherrill was never an X's and O's guy. He was never. He had great assistants under him. He could sell the program, and you know, he had a winning attitude and set a winning atmosphere. But we don't use those players enough. I mean, it's the first day of the ACC network, and you have that going for you. It's a primetime game on a Saturday.
Holiday weekend.
You go out as the traditional weekly captain from their history. Friggin' John Brown's brother, who was a fullback in the 1980s. You know, everybody's looking around saying, who? That's an embarrassment. You have an embarrassment of riches. You had the Los Angeles Rams off on a guy who's willing to help the program. Why the hell, and I want to use the other word, but I'm going to use hell. Why would you not trot out Aaron on that day?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you not trot him on? Why would you not bring back a Danny Marino? Why would you?
Dorsett, Dan Marino, Bill Fralick.
In the building. Why wouldn't you bring him out?
Right.
I
Bill
mean,
Fralick.
these are the guys you need to promote this program. You're right. Get them on a commercial. It's incredible. You're going to have 3 more Hall of Famers in the next few years, and you'll be like either number 1 or 2 in as far as colleges represented in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
Could we, and I'm not blowing our own horn, but could we develop something for the recruiting staff, the assistant coaches, when they go out and say, you want to play football? You come to Pittsburgh. Let me show you this. College, pro football, whatever. I mean, we couldn't put that together. I mean, you do need a salesman for that. But, I mean, think about the Pittsburgh football history period, pro football, college football, everything else. Very few cities in America have that. Now, that may not matter. I mean, we love the history. That may not matter to some recruits. But I kind of wonder, though. Like, I mean, if they're losing the Whippeal kids and they're not recruiting Ohio or even into central Pennsylvania or Jersey like they used to, what the hell is Franklin doing? West Virginia's changing coach 3 times in 6 years. But I love this guy Helgerson. Whatever. He's gone already. I mean, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Their academic standards may be a little bit different, but I mean, they're doing something along that line, I think.
Well, I want to just talk about academics for a second, Gary, because the academics at Pitt are actually really good now. I mean, it is a top tier school. In fact, Pitt used to be everyone's fallback school around here, if you recall that. That's not the case anymore. I mean, a lot of people.
Friends I have in the East would say exactly that Pitt is a school that's now a preferred place for their kids. Not something I expected to hear.
No, but it is. I mean, it's really at the forefront for that. And Dave, you're right. I mean, I think a lot of the administration moved away from sports to academics. I mean, I think that Heather Lyke's done a good job in many of the things she does. Here's the thing that I didn't understand, though, that she did. I thought it was too early to extend Narduzzi. There was no reason to give this guy a 7-year extension at that point. It just floored me.
That was insane. Absolutely.
I mean, I guess maybe what she was trying to do is Pitt recently has had a revolving door of coaches, which certainly did not help recruiting. I mean, you had Walt Harris, who had a pretty decent record, who was shown the door. You had Dave Wannstedt, also pretty decent record, shown the door. Then you had that whole disastrous hiring area where they had 2 very embarrassing coaches. One lasted, I think we've been doing the show longer than that coach lasted, actually. But, you know, I was stunned by that move. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, and they need to show something pretty soon, I would think. And you have this ACC network, which there's a lot of money coming in off of that.
Right.
And you're going to have the exposure. The problem you have, you know, Pitt for years, Dave, you know this, they have inflated the number of people who've been at that stadium. You and I have been there before, and they announced the attendance, and we looked at each other like, where are they? I don't see them.
Yeah.
But you can't continue to have those. They need to do almost like what the Pirates did when they closed off the top part of the stadium at Three Rivers to make it look like there were more people there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's basically the numbers are inflated because the season tickets are cheap, and you have 2 good games a year that people want to go to. And so the other 5 games, they buy them for those 2 games because it's going to be more expensive to go on StubHub and buy a ticket for a Notre Dame game or a Penn State game than it is just to buy the season ticket. But yeah, that's embarrassing. It's, you know, I mean, I like my upper deck seat, and
We're sitting up high too. You see everything develop.
Yeah. Football, that's the best. Yeah, I agree.
And I'd be pissed if I was forced down, but you know, I understand if they did that. I certainly would because, but again, you have a lot of disadvantages. I was at a West Virginia game 2 years ago, and you know what? I just forgot what a good college atmosphere can be.
Yep.
It was a fun atmosphere.
Very, very good.
And again, I do not want to ever be in an SEC situation where we completely forget about the academics because they worked hard. And Nordenberg was not a sports fan, but you know what? He turned that school into a great academic school.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm not suggesting that, but I also think that for certain business lines, basketball and football in particular, the big money makers, it's different. There's a difference between ISO deciding whether they should press criminal charges against somebody or not prosecuting a child molester.
Yeah.
That's a big difference than saying you don't have to say anything. The football program and the basketball program can have a different type of student. If they start committing crimes, kick them out. Kick them out, deal with the coaches and the people who brought them in there.
Yeah.
But that's a different story than expecting that you're going to keep that same standard to that. Duke has never won a damn thing in ACC football. They're not even close. They never will. In basketball, they've got a machine. You only need 8 guys. Totally different than football, where you need 40.
Right. Yeah.
Totally different business. I'm sorry, I don't see it working. It's an ugly part of the NCAA. It's just the way it is. It's why I like the FCS better than the FBS. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to play ball in the FBS. That's just part and parcel of it. I think you have to change your mentality. I don't think you can sit on an academic high chair. I just don't think you can. I don't think you send them. I don't think you send them, through basket weaving. But on the other hand, you cannot expect to compete then with all of the other advantages. The one thing I think I got to throw out here, guys, has got to be thought about. That has nothing to do with Pitt or Pittsburgh. This whole television, and it's not going away either, but this whole television problem has created huge problems for college sports in general. Should West Virginia really be playing Texas Tech and Kansas and these people? No, but they had to do it for money. Look at what it destroyed in basketball in the Big East Basketball Conference.
It was the best conference ever.
It was the best conference ever. It was the best entertainment ever, but money and TV destroyed it. Maryland has no business in the Big Ten. They took the $42 million that they got guaranteed every year. The program's gone to hell. Nobody's going. You couldn't get a Maryland basketball ticket when I was growing up in central Pennsylvania.
You know what? The thing that hurt the worst, and I blame Joe Paterno, but they needed to form that Eastern Conference. Paterno got greedy and wanted too much. And that's what killed it because, basically the other schools thought he was an asshole to begin with.
I think you're right.
But,
yeah, and I think that Pitt should have taken the deal from Penn State. Play one game to host one game to their 2. You got to do it.
That's okay.
Just take the damn deal.
Okay.
You have no choice.
I agree. But I mean, we're not going back to that. And Madden's nicest in theory, but the reality of the matter is it's a huge problem for college sports. I mean, there is no rivalry anymore. There is no You've got West Virginia is what, 60 miles from Pitt, and they're playing teams in Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah,
I mean, Pitt's playing schools in North Carolina. I mean, what? There's a lot of casual for the junkie who just loves these schools or the sport. You'll stay there, but in a world with all these options, you're losing a lot of people.
And that's one of the things that kills a Pitt, that kills a Boston College, it kills a Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
Is having to play schools so far away. But until somebody pulls in an Eastern Regional League, and it's never going to happen at this point because Penn State, it's useless.
Not in the near term, yeah. Particularly in football, yes, right.
Yeah, and I mean, it would have been nice if West Virginia went to the ACC, but the reason West Virginia wasn't there, and the reason UConn wasn't there was academics. I mean, that is one thing that is important to the ACC as a whole.
Yep.
Because, and my son, Tony, was, as a doctorate student, certainly saw the advantages of joining the ACC.
Oh, yeah. Access to all their research materials, incredible.
Yeah.
They've got, but see, I don't know if I'm with you guys on that one. They've also got Florida State, Miami, and Clemson. Yeah. They're not academic institutions.
No, but I mean they're traditional. I mean West Virginia would have been a great program to bring from a sports aspect to the ACC.
I understand, but I just think they also have some that are propping up the money.
And Miami's a good academic school. It's not a public school. It's a nicely rated Jesuit school. So I don't know what Clemson's academics are like. I would tend to believe they're probably where you're saying they were. But Miami is a fine academic institution. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. But I agree with you, and I really don't. From what I gather, I don't think Pitt is doing what they did in the past. I just think they're having trouble selling it now.
I think that's one of the biggest things to start with. I agree.
Yeah. So I think they're going to be, with Nordenberg not in there. I forget the name of the chancellor now, but he's a little more sports friendly than the other chancellors have been. So as I said, I don't think that's an issue. And look at what she's done with other programs.
We can't talk out of both sides of our mouth. In the past, we've railed about these institutions, these conferences that have no academic responsibility. I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah.
But I also think there's somewhere of a middle ground for the money-making sports, and particularly football, because you need a lot of athletes to compete at that. Basketball, I don't feel that way.
No, basketball, 1 or 2 players make a difference.
That's correct. Football, you need 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not suggesting that you roll it open to somebody that can't pass, a written test. I'm not suggesting that, but I do think it's a factor here.
Well, we are running out of time here, so hopefully at some point things will click. But I just think as far as Narduzzi there, I like him as a coach, but I'm not seeing him sell the program.
Guys, just get used to your 7 wins a year.
Yeah.
Probably.
And an occasional nice bowl. Not very often. Every decade or so you'll get one. That's it.
I think that's on the money right now.
All right, gentlemen. Well, you have a good evening. You watch the Bears.
Their defense looks impressive.
They do. Anyways, have a good night. We'll see you next time.
You too.
All right.